It should not be not exactly equal. At least we should have equal number of courses in each and every domain. The selection of domain is purely depends on your faculty strength and local job market and so on. Therefore, we need to select 4 technical areas appropriate to civil engineering, conduct civil engineering experiments, and analyze, interpret the resulting data, design a system, component, or process in more than one civil engineering context. Therefore, they should conduct experimentation, designing a system or component system in more than one domain. Not only in structural engineering, they should be able to conduct some experiments in other domain also. Explain basic concept in management. Therefore, management is important for civil engineering. Business, public, policy, and leadership. Therefore, you have to offer one course in that business, public policy, leadership should be discussed. And explain the importance of professional licensure. Therefore, the civil engineering student should also know the importance of professional licensing in order to practice civil engineering in various countries. This is a recommendation given by ASCE. Therefore, we need to verify our curriculum satisfies or not. If you have already designed the curriculum, if you are going to design the curriculum first time, first read the recommendation. Based on the recommendation, we need to properly incorporate various changes in your curriculum. The second recommendation with respect to faculty, according to ASCE, we should have a diversified faculty. Diversified in the sense that the technical competence of faculty should have a diversified areas. We should not take faculty from only one domain of experience. If you have 20 or 30 faculty, then we can have 6 or 7 clusters in 6 different, so that we are able to have specialization in 6 or 7 different areas of civil engineering. That is called faculty diversity. In addition to that, we should attract some faculty with some industrial experience, so that they are able to offer some courses that are more related to industry, or some in order to discuss real world engineering problems. Their experience is very much important. Therefore, either we can add maybe faculty, those who have got some industry experience. Otherwise, we can have some guest lectures or adjunct faculty, so that we are able to match this gap. Are you able to understand this important program specific criteria? If you have any doubt, we will discuss that. What is the role of program criteria, program specific criteria? For civil engineering, we'll use ASCE. For electrical engineering, we'll use IEEE. ECE also IEEE. For computer science, we can use IEEE or ACM. Like that, for each and every program, we can refer the corresponding professional body in American professional body. Before curriculum design, those who are involved in curriculum, the major, they should know each and every aspect of graduate attributes. They should study in detail, very, very minute details of graduate attribute, because they are going to design the courses, co-curricular and extracurricular activities in order to achieve the expected knowledge or expected attributes. Therefore, we need to be very thorough in all these graduate attributes. Now, how many of you can say the titles of these attributes without seeing this? No need to give the clear-cut exact definition. At least you know the titles of all these attributes. That is the minimum required from each and every faculty. If you are offering UG course, then you should know what is the expected graduate attributes for engineering graduates. Then only you can map or you can offer your course so that you are able to do COPO mapping. Also, you can very much involved in curriculum design. The details are given here. Apply. Let us take one or two. Apply the knowledge of mathematics, science, engineering fundamentals, engineering specialization to the solution of complex engineering problem. Then problem analysis. You see that maybe 4 to 5 times we are getting complex engineering problems. There are also complex engineering problems. Complex engineering problems. Complex engineering problems. Complex engineering problems. Here also, if you see that, conduct investigation of complex engineering problems. What is a complex engineering problems? Any idea? What do you mean by complex engineering problem? In your opinion, what do you mean by complex engineering problem? Very good. Real world. How to expose our students to real world problem? If you follow only textbook and by solving problems given the textbook, can we ensure our students in I request all, please mute your mic. Magesh. Here we need to look for various opportunities to introduce some changes in the problems. For most of the real world problems, there is no one unique answer. Sometimes problem is not well defined. Lot of assumptions we need to make so that the problem will be solved. The raw problem cannot be solved. Only after making assumption it will be a solvable problems. Therefore, the students should be given such opportunities like what is a real world actual problem, how to convert a actual problem into a solvable problem, what are the assumptions, whether the assumptions are valid or not. After converting into a actual meaningful problem, what are the tools available to solve the problem, whether we have one answer or many answer. If you have many answer, which one is a very good one? How will you say this is a good answer, a good solution for the given problem? If you have any performance indicator or not. Therefore, it takes lot of insight. Therefore, if students are exposed to industry, maybe it may be an industrial project or internship, or if some faculty members are having experience in industry, or if you give some case study or mini project, then only there is an opportunity for exposing to real world problems. Therefore, we need to seek certain opportunities for interfacing real world problems. Otherwise, it is very, very difficult to meet the very basic 4 important attributes. PO1, GA1, 2, 3, 4. Because with the courses, using only curriculum, we are going to meet mostly 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We are going to meet other attribute also, but mostly we are going to meet 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Therefore, if you are not able to have a clear understanding of this POs, graduate attributes, it is very, very difficult to offer the courses. We may not be knowing the depth in which we need to design the courses. If the courses are designed very lightly, then the mapping between CO to PO is very light. Then we are not able to achieve, or we are not able to meet the expectations of the program outcome. Like that, we have different tools. The fifth requirement is very important requirement. Create, select, and apply appropriate techniques, resources, modern engineering and IT tools, including prediction and modeling to complex engineering activities with an understanding of the limitation. Here only we are going to use a lot of tools. The tools may be software or hardware tools. Most of the laboratories will be using this. We will try to map this fifth important graduate requirement. When it comes to the sixth one, engineer and society, can you identify the courses that will have a matching to this engineer and society? How will you achieve this sixth requirement? Any idea? Any course that will have a match to this graduate attribute? Engineer and society. The engineer should know the implications of engineering activities on the society. As an engineer, power engineer, as an electrical engineer, I should know when I implement nuclear power plant, what will happen to the society? What are the ill effects of nuclear power? If I propose solar energy or wind energy, what are the effects of that energy in the social system? Being an electronics and communication engineer, if I install mobile tower in various parts of the society, maybe thickly populated areas, what will happen to the maybe the people who are living in the near vicinity of the mobile tower? What are the ill effects of using mobile phone? Like that, as a communication engineer, I should know the impact on the society. Now, how to give this kind of knowledges in the courses? Any idea? Participants, you can give your reflection in the chat box. If the course handling faculty clearly understood the role of this particular attribute, then only, depending upon the nature of the course, he can discuss these aspects with the students. Otherwise, it is very, very difficult to address it. Then another aspect is environment and sustainability. Understand the impact of engineering solutions in society and environmental context, demonstrate the knowledge of and the need for sustainable development. Therefore, whatever solution we are going to provide, what happens to the society and the environment, whether the solution is sustainable or not, that we should be very clear. Then we have ethical, apply ethical principles and commit to professional ethics and responsibilities, norms of engineering practice. Whether we are offering ethics course in undergraduate level, whether you are offering in your organization ethics. Just by offering one ethics course is sufficient to meet this requirement. Is it sufficient to offer just by offering one ethics course, no. It is something like ethics for getting pass mark in ethics course. I'll be copying from other student. It should not be. Ethics should be practiced. Apply ethical principles and commit to professional ethics. I need to practice. I need to own the ethics. I need to know. It's not only knowing. My attitude should be positive towards ethical principles. And I should accept it. I need to practice it. Therefore, it is very, very important. Therefore, in various courses of our teaching learning activities, we need to inculcate this culture among the students. Maybe it may be a laboratory or it may be a mini project, whether they are able to do their own work or not, whether they are copying from somebody. If at all they are referring from some source, they should be properly cited. Even in the project report, they are giving a lot of references. If at all they are referring something, that should be properly cited. We should say, I referred this topic from this. We should not simply copying somebody's knowledge and saying, it is my own. It's not ethics. Therefore, it's not simply passing some ethics course. It should be properly percolated among the institution, among the students. It should be a culture. Then individual and teamwork, they should effectively act as an individual as well as a team member in various diversified team in multidisciplinary setting. Therefore, only in co-curricular and extracurricular activities, there is a possibility of involving different students from different disciplines. Most of the curricular work, only in laboratory and all, same student will be mingled, student of same discipline. But if you take sports or NCC, NSS, or some department, maybe college level activities, there is a possibility of diversified team. Therefore, we need to know the effect of this particular important work among the students. Then only most of the students involved in this organizational work. Then communication. And normally we thought communication is only language communication. It's not only language communication, engineering communication. For engineers, even drawing is a communication. For software engineer, programming language is a communication. Flowchart is a communication. For electrical and electronic engineering, circuits are communications. A language for communication. Therefore, we have to have a proper communication between not only one team, one group, diversified group. We should be able to communicate among engineers of your own domain and other domains also we need to communicate. Even for a normal public, we need to effectively communicate what you wanted to communicate to them. Therefore, we need to have a very good communication skill. Not only oral communication, written communication, not only language, it is also engineers' communication. Then finally, lifelong learning. Recognize the need for and have the preparation, the ability to engage in independent lifelong learning in the broadest context of technological changes. How will you bring this lifelong learning culture among the students during their stay in the 4 years of their education?
Sir, shall we have a break now?
What is your reflection? We can do a lot of co-curricular activities, intensive, maybe participating in some conferences, presenting paper, attending seminar, being a member of professional society, attending guest lectures, everything is related to lifelong learning. If they are involving themselves, not related to the course, in addition to the course, if they are actively involving in improvement, is very important. It's actually feeling. They should not think after BE, no need to study. With BE, I can get employability. Maybe in each and every day, we need to update our knowledge formally, informally. There is an important attitude for engineering graduates because technology is changing. Therefore, they should understand that with that change only they can hold that responsibility. Let us break for 10 minutes. We'll meet at 2:30. Madam, please announce it.
Yeah, we shall have a break now, and please join the session by 2:30. Can we start, sir?
Yes, madam, I'm ready.
Okay. So welcome all the participants. So over to you, sir.
Once again, good afternoon. We'll discuss the various aspects of graduate attributes. Now we discussed majority of the graduate attributes. Here the point is we need to know each and every graduate attribute in detail. After discussion, deliberation among the faculty, then only we know how to bring this ability among the students, whether by offering the courses or by means of co-curricular or laboratory or mini project. We need to discuss at length, then only we are able to get the meaningful ways in which we can achieve this. Here, I want to ask a very simple question. Can you, if you design your curriculum without referring graduate attribute, whether we can meet these abilities? Because in traditional education, we don't have any reference like program outcomes. We are designing curriculum. With the already designed curriculum, we are mapping the POs. We are also saying that we are able to achieve the attributes. Even the first 5, can we get to the expected level? Even the first 5, we are not able to meet the expected level. We are able to meet to some extent, not to the expected lines. The next 7 is very, very difficult. Therefore, the conventional curriculum is not having any standard or any holistic thing. That if your syllabus designed from this reference, if you in the design stage itself, if you offer your course in depth, various co-curricular, extracurricular activities are so designed, automatically there is a possibility of achieving the expected program outcomes in much more better way. Here I wanted to share the system followed in our institution. If you refer our system, we are using 2 processes. One process is meant for the overall change. Are you able to see this diagram? Participants, are you able to see this diagram or not? I cannot do it more than, because it's the maximum size I can do it. It is a process diagram. In our college, for each and every common activity, we have formulated a process like this. If you see that in the curriculum design process. In curriculum design process, we are getting lot of inputs. Credit distribution of higher learning institutions in India abroad. That is one of the input. We have to refer. That is the point we are making to all the departments. You refer the different higher learning institutions, how they are giving credit distribution. Then AICTE and Anna University, because our parent university is Anna University, we wanted to verify AICTE model curriculum and Anna University guidelines for the curriculum design. Then professional society, this actually the professional society means our program specific criteria. We have to verify that guidelines. Then POs and PSOs, that is one of the input for the curriculum design. Then we are collecting feedback from various industry by giving the various questionnaire. Then external stakeholder feedback. After collecting the feedback only, we are going to assign credit for various curricular components. Here the curricular components means it is nothing but credit allocated to science and humanities courses, core courses, elective courses, project like that for various components. What is the maximum credit? Because according to AICTE model curriculum, 160 credit is more than sufficient for undergraduate engineering degree program. Also, credit definition is 1 theory hour is equal to 1 credit, 2 practical hour is equal to 1 credit, 1 tutorial is also equal to 1 credit. Based on that only we need to allocate the credit. That is why we are also giving 160 for engineering program, 4 years. Among the 160 credit, the various curricular components wise credits are distributed based on the guidelines. Then we have written, identify first level course outcome in SIG. It is very, very important step. From the program outcome, we have written outcomes, course outcome for various specialization. In each program, we have selected 4 minimum track, 4 track. In each and every track, we have written COs first level. Then that was elaborated for next levels of COs. Then classify the courses, core or elective courses. Prepare the course map based on the prerequisite. Prepare the scheduling of the courses. Review at the department level meeting. Incorporate suggestion in the department meeting. Then only course is going to be designed. For course design, normally we will allocate 3 faculty members. They are termed as course designers. The input given to them is only course outcomes are given to them. With taking course outcome as an input, they have to design the course. The common template will be given to them. It is a process for course design. The course design step involved prepare, redefine course outcomes with the corresponding Bloom's level and a target level of attainment. The course design itself, they have to find the expected proficiency and the expected level of attainment. We need to verify the CO's correlation, design the Bloom's taxonomy based assessment pattern. Then we need to write the concept map, prepare the syllabi, lesson plan, course level assessment questions, review the syllabus in SIG local level, model level meeting. Then only the syllabus is ready for further discussions. In the overall diagram, after syllabus is ready, incorporate suggested, we will be, all the syllabus is ready, then we'll conduct a board of studies meeting, incorporate changes in the board of studies meeting, then academic council meeting, then corrections. Finally, it will be approved. After approval, it will be shared among the stakeholders, faculty and students. The system is a process followed like this. Each and every institution has to have their own processes. In this process, the important point is we need to refer the AICTE curriculum, local university guidelines, the professional society guidelines. The input is PO-PSO. We need to write the COs from the POs, considering at least 4 specialization for each program. In each and every specialization, we need to write COs from the POs. Then we need to elaborate that first level COs into more number of COs. Thereby we are able to get hundreds of COs. Then by collecting the related COs, we are assigning various courses. Once course name and COs are given, we'll be designing the course with 3 or 4 faculty. They will conduct a lot of meetings among them, lot of iterations. Then that will be discussed at module level. After everything is okay, then only the designed course will be given to the department level. Like that, we are following some process. This is the major process. This is for course design, individual course design. Are you able to follow me? I want to show this one. This was taken from our NBA SAR actually. We have given this for our NBA self-assessment report. We have given this flow chart for preparing that SAR. Sir, with that I want to stop my discussion on the lab curriculum design, outcome-based curriculum design. The major summary point is there should be a process for outcome-based curriculum design. We should start with the regulation. In the regulation, we should take the important points. We should have a processes that involves getting input from various important considerations, involving all the faculty in the course design. In the course design itself, lot of meeting deliberations should be conducted. Standard template will be given to all the course designers. The faculty will be given freedom to define the weightages for various topics, and the assessment pattern will be different for different courses. Same assessment will not be used for all the courses. I think I wanted to discuss that. Maybe I will open one document, you can understand it. Are you able to see this one? Are you able to see the PDF file? Please say yes or no. Okay. This is our syllabus for 2015-16. If you see that we have a standard template. Somebody said no, I don't know. Oh, PPT is not necessary, sir. Okay, sorry. I will post the PPT. Are you able to see now? It is a new PDF file. It is also available in the website. What you can refer it. For each course, standard template is given to all the faculty. Each syllabus, each course should consist of course name, preamble, prerequisite, course outcomes, course outcome statements, and the corresponding knowledge levels. Then assessment practice is different for different. This is very, very important point. If you take conventional curriculum, assessment pattern will be same. Here, depending upon the depth of the COs, each course will have different weightages. I think here, if you see that for each and every assessment test as well as a terminal examination, the distribution of marks are different. If you take some other course, they will have different distribution. This is completely decided by the course designer. Then they also give the sample questions for each level. Course map and syllabus. Here the syllabus is framed only after COs are written. Normally in our syllabus we will not have very detailed topics. Topics will be limited. Then textbook, reference books. Then we will also specify the course plan. Then finally course designers who are all involved in the course design. This is the first year course. Let us go to some other if you see that this is a lab, the lab course, they have written COs, but covering not only knowledge level, they are also covering skills. You see that S3, S3, S3. CO to PO mapping for this laboratory course. Then experiments mapped to the COs. Then who has designed the course? I will take one more course. It's a DSP course. It's a theory course with the 2 tutorials. We see that the pattern is something different here. Previously, we have used different pattern for that course. This course, we have different pattern. I think if you want, you can refer this. It's an old syllabi. Recently, we have modified in 2018-19. I wanted to show this because if you wanted to maintain quality, there should be a standard templates. Then only the faculty member will prepare with respect to your standard information. Okay, next we will discuss about laboratory. I wanted to show the laboratory. Next, I am going to discuss about design of laboratory courses. Design of laboratory courses. This is a very important topic because we are underutilizing laboratory in our engineering education or engineering curriculum. Let us spend some time on this. If you see the expected program outcome, already we discussed that there are 12 program outcomes. They are in high level, actually K3, K4, K5, very, very high levels. Mainly, if you see that most of the theory course contributes only in LOTS. LOTS means apply level, maximum apply. Maybe in some theory courses, we can go up to analyze level. We can cover that affective domain also. We can change the value of individuals in theory course. Therefore, in theory course, mainly we are supporting LOTS level when it comes to knowledge. When it comes to affective, we are definitely there is scope for changing attitude of individuals. If you take a laboratory course, there is a possibility of covering all the three domains: knowledge domain, affective domain, and skill domain. Therefore, in that sense, lab is very, very important. Now, we need to design theory and laboratory courses so that they are complement to each other. Because it is very difficult to satisfy, very difficult to achieve higher order thinking skills in theory courses. We can achieve, but we need to put a lot of efforts. But relatively, it is very easier to achieve higher order thinking skills in laboratory course. Now, one more point, whether we are covering all the concepts that are discussed in theory in the laboratory or not. What is the percentage of coverage of concept in laboratory courses? Let us assume that we have some 30 to 35 theory courses, but we have only 10 or 12 practical courses. Whether these 12 practical courses covers all the concepts that are discussed in the theory courses or not. Otherwise, in a typical engineering curriculum, what is the percentage of coverage of theory concept in laboratory courses? What is your opinion? Whether it is 100% or less than that? If it is less, what is the approximate percentage? If you cover all the theory, all the concept in lab, then it is 100%. Whatever you are discussing in theory, if all are 60, somebody said 60. What about others? $80. Okay. I think definitely it is not 100%. It is very difficult to achieve 100%, definitely. But definitely we can think the possibility of improving this number. Maybe you can bring 70 to 80, certainly, but 80 is a very high number. Most of the concept, at least the core courses, whatever we are discussing, LT courses we can left. Whatever topics, whatever concept we are discussing in core courses, there should be somehow covered in the practical courses. At least we can design one laboratory courses, maybe for 2 or 3 related theory courses. Instead of 1-to-1, 2 or 3 theory courses put together, we can maybe related courses, we can put together, we can offer one theory courses. Maybe we can, then and there, we can have a capstone projects. Capstone is a comprehension. Maybe at the end of second year, whatever the concept they studied in second year, maybe connectively put together, we can have one course. That is called a capstone course. In most of the Western universities, they are offering capstone only to comprehend whatever they studied in maybe so far in terms of one project or in terms of one meaningful set of experiments. Therefore, we need to check whether we are covering all the theory concept in the laboratory or not. Yesterday we discussed it. I referred some literature with respect to laboratory course design. There are two very good papers published in IEEE Transactional Engineering Education. According to that, they have identified 3 roles for laboratory course, or engineering laboratory course. The students should learn how to be an experimenter. There are major objectives for the laboratory course. The laboratory can be a place for the student to learn new and developing subject matter. Laboratory courses help the student to gain insights and understanding of the real world. Therefore, we need to design the laboratory course in such a manner that in laboratory they should learn how to be an experimenter, how to conduct experiments. Then the laboratory can be a place for the students to learn new and developing subject matter. It's not fixed. Then in laboratory, there should be opportunity for understanding the real world. The overall goal of engineering education is to prepare the students to practice engineering. Because why we are offering engineering program, at the end of the BE program, they should be able to practice engineering. From the earliest days of engineering education, engineering laboratories have been an essential part of the undergraduate. As compared to any other program, the laboratory is, the weightage of laboratory is very high compared to any other program, because we are having higher weightage. Very much attention has been paid to curriculum and teaching methods. Relatively little has been written about the laboratory section. Lot of research articles are available, how to design theory courses, how to deliver, how to assess. But when it comes to how to deliver instruction in the laboratory, we have only very little work done. If you refer these articles, definitely we can modify our existing laboratories so as to meet the requirements of program outcomes. What are the essential elements in the laboratory course? There are some essential components. Choice of projects. In each and every laboratory, there should be a project. They need to do some project. If you have to think, if there is a possibility of offering integrated courses, theory cum practical. Even if you refer the AICTE model curriculum, some courses are designed as a integrated course. One of the best example is programming. Most of the programming courses should be offered as an integrated course. Instead of offering theory, C programming separately 3 credits and 2 credits for C programming laboratory, it is not a good thing. Instead of that, maybe a 4 credit course, a 3 credit course, it is a theory cum practical, giving lesser weightage to theory, because essentially programming is a skill. Programming skills should be developed as a practice. Like that, if there is any possibility of combining theory and lab, there should be opportunity for group work. Team of students should work. Then only the team, if a team skill, they will learn. Team spirit will come. They will understand team dynamics. They will understand others. Then we need to select appropriate equipment. We should not select obsolete equipment. Whatever equipment we are using in the laboratory, that should be available in the real world. We should not use any obsolete equipment. Therefore, we need to be very careful in selecting the equipment. Plan each experiment very carefully. Don't give experiment just for just the sake of experiment. We have to plan it very clearly. Then there should be some experiments, open-ended experiments. Give full freedom to students. They will freely do some experiments on some thing. After the completion of one lab course, we need to review it, whether we have done perfectly or not. any possibility of improving the laboratory course when you are going to offer it next time or not. Therefore, we need to consider the important aspects while designing a laboratory course. There is another important document. It was recommended by Accreditation Board of Engineering Technology. They have identified 13 objectives or 13 outcomes for laboratory. In most of the engineering education, we'll be having 15 laboratories. You have to design all the 15 laboratories in such a manner that after the completion of 15 laboratories, they should be able to achieve the 13 outcomes according to the above. If you take these guidelines, your laboratory experiments quality will be improved effectively. The first objective is instrumentation. Apply appropriate sensors, instrumentation, software tools to make measurements of physical quantities. Whatever may be the specialization, all the engineering students should know instrumentation. Whether he is civil engineering, mechanical, electrical, whatever may be the case, we need to give some exposure to apply appropriate sensor to measure the instrumentation, to measure the physical parameters. Maybe for civil engineering, it may be related to stress or strain. Maybe electrical engineer, they will read maybe electrical signals. The signal may be different, but they should know how to apply the sensors for collecting real-world data by using appropriate hardware and software tools. That is common. That is one of the important objectives for laboratory. Then models. They should be able to model using maybe data. From the data, they need to model. They should also know the important assumptions we made while formulating establishing the model. The third one is experiment. They should be able to conduct experiments on their own. After knowing the equipment, they should select proper equipment procedures. They should independently conduct the experiment. Then data analysis, design, build. They should have assembling the thing. If it is electronic, there should be a PCB making, or mechanical, it may be a fabrication of a product and so on. Learn from failure. If they are conducting some experiment, if they are not getting results, then from that failure, they should understand why it is, why we are not able to get the results. What could be the problem? Therefore, learning from failure is very, very important concept. In theory, we cannot bring this experience. Then creativity. Demonstrate appropriate level of independent thought, creativity, and capability in real-world problem solving. Then psychomotor. Safety. They should know the safety precautions in various equipments they are using in the laboratory. Communication. They should prepare very good technical reports. They should also be able to communicate their understanding through others. Then teamwork. Ethics in the laboratory. Then sensory awareness. These are some of the important objectives they identified. We can take this as a reference. Depending upon the laboratory, the nature of the laboratory course, and then there we can incorporate these objectives so that at the end of the all the laboratory courses, we are able to achieve these objectives. Then there are some recommendations. Each and every experiment should have pre-lab, in-lab, post-lab. Therefore, each experiment in the laboratory should accompany a pre-lab activities, in-lab, actual in the laboratory, what he is going to do. After the conduct of that experiment, what he is going to do. That should be properly planned well in advance. Why we need to have a pre-lab? Pre-lab helping the students to understand the models, theories, and principles addressed in the lab procedure, ensuring the students to know how the lab fits into the course content. outlining the lab procedure and data analysis. Sometimes pre-lab can be a model simulation also. Before actually doing the experiment practically, by using some simulation software, they can do analyze for various parameters. Advantages, we have a lot of advantages. They will come prepared for the lab exercise. Equipments and experiments will go smoothly. Their understanding will be heightened, actually improved because of this pre-lab activities. Then some post-lab activities. We may conduct some quiz immediately after the conduct of laboratory experimentation. We can ask Viva. We can ask the students to write the inference report. We can give the assignment. We can also give the project. Therefore, depending upon the nature of the experimentation, we can take any one of the post-lab activities so that each and every experiment will be properly reoriented with some purpose. I want to ask a very simple question, whether we are conducting any post-lab activities in your institution like this. Very good, very good. But if you conduct Viva for all the experimentation, it's not good. Maybe for some experiments, Viva may be better. For other experiments, we can ask them student to go for some problem analyzing with the software, maybe simulations. Because in practical, we cannot simulate all the conditions. Okay, we can give some different conditions that cannot be tested in the real world, maybe in the real experimentation. You verify. If you set this value, what will happen? Like that, we can give some challenging conditions as an assignment so the student can go and verify in the simulation and they can come with some inference. That is very important point we can add. Then open-ended experiments. In most of the cases, we are conducting a planned experimentation. Everything is given like a cookbook type. Mostly we'll be giving the procedure, objectives, aim, apparatus to be used, design also will be given, a model calculation, even model graph is also given. Therefore, there is no surprise to the student. Therefore, there is no scope for applying their knowledge. Everything is given to them. Simply, they will go and take the reading. They will plot it. Instead of that, if you conduct open-ended experiments, not all the experiments, at least 1 or 2 experiments in higher level. When they go to third year level, if some laboratories we give 1 experiment open-endedly, then there is a possibility of some inquiry. They are going for some higher levels. There are some models available to define the openness in the laboratory. Heron model is a very good model. By using this model, we are able to identify the level of our laboratory experiments, in which level we are operating the laboratory. They are classifying the quality of laboratory with respect to 3 important specifications: problem, place and means, answers. With respect to this, they are classifying. If problem is given, procedure is also given, answer is also known already, then it is 0 level. Problem is given, base procedure is given, but answer is not known prior. It's a new problem. I didn't know the answer. What could be the answer? There is level 1. Level 2 is problem is given, procedure not given. You are asked to take your own way. Answer is not known. If everything is open, it is highest. Therefore, openness of the laboratory experiments can be defined using this model. Now, I wanted to ask a very simple question. What is going to be the level of most of the experiments in university curriculum or the experiments you are conducting in your institution? Whether it is 0 level or first level or second level or third level. If all are in first level, we are underutilizing the laboratory. We are underutilizing the students. We are underestimating the student knowledge. We are underutilizing the laboratory. It is very difficult to set all the experiments in third level. Maybe in initial level, we can have something 0, something maybe 1. If you have 12 experiments, maybe 6 or 7 maybe in 0th level, 2 or 3 maybe 1, 1 maybe in 2. Like that, we can have combinations of this level so that students are getting different exposures. Therefore, we need to know the quality of our laboratory experiments. Then we can use simulations whenever there is a possibility, because in the simulation they are able to analyze with the different conditions that was not possible in real world. Therefore, whenever you have a simulation for your own laboratory experimentation, either in pre-lab or in the post-lab, simulation can be properly maybe incorporated so that we are able to get proper higher level knowledge. I wanted to just share some of the thought in laboratory course of some of the popular universities across the globe. I collected maybe the data from MIT, Stanford, IIT Mumbai, IIT Madras, and what is the current literature in engineering education. Maybe I will just highlight, because we have very little time. In most of the laboratory courses in MIT, they have number of components. If you see that, in lab also, they are giving mark by using different activities. They are conducting quiz. They are giving assignments, 3 problem sets for 3 mark. They are conducting 4 examination, not 1 examination. Lab 1, 9%, lab 2, 10%, lab 3. Lab is compartmentalized into 4 categories. Then they have to write a report, a laboratory report. They are giving 10 mark. Then participation in lecture, recitation, project presentation. They have to be participate in various, maybe just like attendance, 3%. Then final project, 37%. Therefore, even in the laboratory, the students are doing a lot of work. It is not simply doing some experiments. Everything is fixed. Maybe at the end of the semester, we will give only one experiment, not all the experiment. We will not test their skill in all the experiments. But it is not so in other universities. Even in the laboratory, they are testing their qualities in all the topics. They are giving problem statements, laboratory in 4 different groups, finally project also. The major weightage is given to the project. You see that the final project is given 37% as compared to other thing. The lab 1 is not one experiment, it is a group of experiments. Combined together, they are conducting only one laboratory examination. In Stanford, they didn't give detailed description. They are given only simply what kind of experiments they are doing. In IIT also, if you see that, they are given only list of experimentations. But the experimentations are all in high quality. They are very, maybe all are in apply and analyze level. If you see that, the keywords they used are all are either in apply or analyze level. In IIT Madras, they are given experiments in the form of course objectives and the course outcome. But they are very specific that applying the same in real world conditions. One specific keyword they have indicated, all the experiments are with respect to the real world applications. Therefore, it's not a simple just experiment. They have to do the experiment with respect to real world context. What is the current reality? If you refer the current engineering education literature, they are moving towards NEET. It is not a NEET examination. It is another NEET denoted as Next, engineering education transformation. Next, engineering education transformation by one of the well-known, renowned author, Edward Crowley. He's actually MIT professor. According to him, don't offer courses in silos, in island form. You have to offer large credit course. 3 or 4 theory courses put together, one project. It is called one module. You offer the entire 160 credit with the 8 modules. Each module will be 20 credits. Each module consists, I just give one recommendation. For one module, we may have 3 or 4 theory courses put together, one project or 1 or 2 laboratory. Put together, it may be one module. Like that, they are recommending large credit courses. Therefore, they wanted to integrate theory and laboratory. Instead of offering theory separately, lab separately, they need to have a comprehension of theory and laboratory in the form of project. Therefore, if you have a course specialization in your engineering program, for each specialization, we can give 1 or 2 modules. Thereby, there is a possibility of completing 4 or 5 projects. They are able to get very good in-depth knowledge by using this model. We have one more model, project-based learning, followed by Aalborg University in Denmark. They are also a very well-established organization for offering large credit courses. We see that in each and every semester, they are offering only less number of courses, but the course weightage will be very high because each course will have a combinations of theory and projects and lab. If you refer the Aalborg University website, you can get other details. Now I wanted to discuss related to the course file. Maybe I will take 10 minutes. Can I take 10 minutes, ma'am?
Okay, sir.
I don't want to use any PPT. Maybe I will discuss what is the role of course file. Why we are using course file? What is the need for course file in general? Whether we are maintaining course file in hard form or in soft form. Whether you are maintaining course file or not. First of all. Yes. In hard copy form or soft form? Very good. Very good. Whether hard or soft, you are using means what are the contents in what are the contents in the course file? Can you say some contents in the course file? What are the contents we should have? What are the items we should be? Course plan, very good. What should be the first one? Can we place the course plan first? Very good. Start with the vision mission of the department. Then we can have the PSOs or POs, PEOs, vision mission of the department. Then we can have PEOs. Then we can write your POs. Then course outcomes. Course outcome of your course. Then syllabus, content. In the syllabus itself, the mapping and everything will be there. Mapping means the target, everything will be there. After that, you can go for your students registered. Possibly you can have your timetable also, course timetable you can have. Students name, list of students registered. Then you can place your course plan. After defining all the course primitive details, then we can go for the course plan. Straight away we can go to the course plan, or we have to do something here. After the course plan, what we can have? After the course plan, we can have some material, learning resources. With respect to internal assessment, maybe you can have assignment 1, tutorial worksheets, tutorial and assignment, followed by your examination question paper, scheme of evaluation, then the sample answer script and assignment, performance of your students, then analysis report, faculty reflection report for that test. We should not end with only data. The data should be properly analyzed. The meaningful reflection should be written by the faculty. That is called faculty reflection report. For each assessment, there should be a faculty reflection. Not only test, for the assignment also, they need to reflect on the performance of the students. Therefore, for each, maybe after your course plan, learning resource, maybe material, tutorial, worksheet, assignment, test paper, scheme of evaluation, your performance, student performance, report, the same thing repeated for the second test. If you have third test also, same thing will be repeated. After that, end semester examination question paper and students' performance, analysis report, course outcome attainment, because course outcome attainment should be completed only at the end of the course. The last one will be course outcome attainment. Then after that, faculty reflection report overall. After their 3 or 4 months of experience, what is the recommendation they wanted to give for the faculty who are going to take that course next time. Therefore, we have to end with a reflection report. Yes, AICTE has recommended as 160 credits. They are given 150 to 160, maximum 160. Number of courses, I am not exactly, I know it's not 60, it will be around 60. I don't know the exact number. It may be around 60. Therefore, we need to have a proper arrangement of your thing. It is better to have minimum number of the resources, the handwritten notes. The handouts may be kept minimum. We can give more priority to the analysis report. Then only we can get useful reflection from your course file. Course file is not simply collecting something, dumping something in the one file. Therefore, very, very important point we need to make it here. Just by checking the course file, one can understand whether they are following OBE or not. In a traditional education, the use of course file is something different, but in the outcome-based education context, the role of course file is something different. Therefore, in the course plan, while writing course plan itself, we need to refer the previous year course file. Then only we need to, therefore, first the faculty reflection report from the previous course file. That should be the starting point. After that, only we need to place the course plan. These are all some modifications required so that we are following, we are able to justify, we are truly following outcome-based education. Our system is in closed loop. If you are not referring the previous course file for making the current course file, then you are not following outcome-based education. You are running your system in open loop mode. Therefore, in your course file, the copy of previous year course file's last page should be there. Only after that, course plan should come. The meaning is, after reading that reflection report of the previous course handling faculty, I prepared my course plan. It is not just replicate of the old course plan. There should be some changes incorporated depending upon the reflection report of the previous course handling faculty. Therefore, I just give some index for maintaining the good course file. Maybe we can start with vision and mission of the department, PEOs, POs, COs, then your course syllabi. The course syllabi involves CO to PO mapping, assessment pattern, everything. After that, we can fix your previous course file reflection report, then your course plan for the current semester. Then you can have your learning maybe material handout, or it may be a PPT or some learning resources. Then tutorial assignment worksheets. Then test question, test result, analysis report. Same thing will be repeated for the test 2, test 3. Then finally end semester question paper, scheme of evaluation, mark obtained by the student, then analysis report, course outcome attainment, then finally faculty reflection report. The faculty reflection report should be verified by the module coordinator and program coordinator or head of the department. After that, this course file is going to be referred by the faculty who is going to take that course next time. If you maintain this information using hard file, it is very difficult to manage because it has lot of pages. Even for the sharing this information, the handling is very, very difficult. Also, with respect to the use of paper, we are using large number of papers. Instead of that, if you follow e-course file by sharing some folder in Google Drive, it will be better. Instead of going for maintaining, even for the committee and all, we can easily verify, we can easily show your demonstration. They can even appreciate your, we can save the paper. Lot of advantages also we have. It's very easy to copy one, or maybe one Word file to your folder. Because the question paper will be in soft copy only. Simply you can have that copy in your folder. Therefore, in our college, what we are doing is, for each semester, for different program, UG program, PG program, we'll have one folder. In that, for each course, we have separate folder. That folder will be maintained by one faculty who is handling that course. In that semester, he is going to put all the relevant information in the soft copy. That will be verified by the program module coordinator, course coordinator, and head of the department. Then and there, then only they can ensure that at the end of the course, all the informations are in order. Therefore, the intermediate progress, the stages of different stages can be verified by different authorities. That system we are following from 2017-18 onwards. It is working very well. And that is why I wanted to share this information to all. With that, I wanted to stop. Already I took 15 minutes extra. Sorry for that. Thank you once again for this opportunity. I thank organizers for giving this opportunity. I also thank AICT for sponsoring this event for the benefit of faculty members. I also thank participants for your patient hearing, patient listening for the last 2 days.
So participants, you can post your questions. If you have any questions, you can put it in the chat box.
I just share, if you have any doubt, maybe you can, if you want, if I'm free, I can answer. Maybe if you have any doubt, you can also mail. Not now, whenever you have any doubt, I'm very happy to clarify if possible. This is my mail ID. If you have any specific, maybe you can give feedback. Maybe one or I'm expecting your feedback. One of you maybe give your feedback about the sessions, 4 sessions in 2 days, the last 2 days. Your feedback will be very useful for me to change my delivery method for the upcoming presentations. We have so many softwares, sir, but I don't recommend buying software commercially. You can make your own software, sir. It's very simple only. We are not going to do any sophisticated mathematical thing. Only we are capturing the data. Maybe with the help of your computer science department, definitely you can develop your own software. A Moodle is a platform only for learning management system, only for the course related information. You can keep everything in Moodle. But for this COPO attainment and capturing all the OB related information, it is better to have one software. Definitely you can use Moodle. Moodle is free, you can use it. That is for course related. There are some commercial software InPod is making. There are some companies, TCS also making some software. We have software Blackboard, this very costly one. Most of the international universities are using Blackboard. But my suggestion is use your own resources. So, because otherwise it's very difficult to get the data from them. If you have your own software, you can maintain a lot of privacy. You can change it whenever you want, you can have changes. Otherwise, always you have to depend on them. Modification is not so easy if you use the commercial softwares. We also encounter a lot of problems. We started with some other, then now we have, we started using our own development actually.
So on behalf of Rajagiri School of Engineering and Technology, I extend a very hearty vote of thanks to Dr. S. Bhaskar, who spent his valuable time out of his very busy schedule. So we thank you, sir, for your talk on the problems that we face in traditional curriculum design and gave us an idea in the problems specific criteria, and also for the interactive session and explaining about the program outcomes in engineering and gave us an insight into the importance of course filing. We thank you, sir, and thank you all the participants who joined the session very actively. And also participants, please note that there is a slight change in the timing of tomorrow's schedule. That is tomorrow, the morning session starts at 9:15 a.m. by Dr. Umakant P. Kulkarni on course design. So it's given in the schedule that it starts at 10 a.m. but it starts at 9:15 a.m. tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you, one and all. Thank you.
Thank you very much for accepting the invitation. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.